The continuation of first part. This is Munich Pact. A further factor was that the Western powers and the Soviet Union distrusted each other. In 1938, Prime Minister Chamberlain concluded the Munich Pact with Germany, which was the shameful acceptance of Germany's invasion of Czechoslovakia to annex Germany. Speaking Sudetenland, in 1939, the Soviet Union independently concluded a non-aggression pact with Germany. The continued passivity of the Allies and the reluctance to start building up their armies were also contributory causes of extended scale of World War II. Though Hitler gave an assurance in the Munich Pact that the Germany would not attack any other country, this was broken immediately. In 1939, he invaded Czechoslovakia. Poland was attacked next, and this was the final act which resulted in the declaration of the war by Britain and France against Germany. In Britain, Prime Minister Chamberlain resigned in 1940, and Winston Churchill, who had always warned about Hitler and his military ambitions, became the Prime Minister. Course of World War II. Nature of the war. World War II was fought on two distinct fronts, Europe and the Asia Pacific. In Europe, the war was fought by the Allies against Germany and Italy. In the Asia Pacific, the Allies fought Japan. World War II was a modern war fought with heavy military equipment such as tanks, submarines, battleships, aircraft carriers, fighter planes, and bomber planes. This involved a very large resource base since all these equipment needed to be manufactured. There had to be raw materials, manufacturing capacity, and technical inputs to improve the military hardware. This was an expensive and prolonged war of attrition. Outbreak of war. Britain and France war on Germany in September 1939. In June 1940, Italy joined Germany, and in September 1940, Japan also joined the Axis powers. There was little action immediately after the declaration of war. Britain had already begun to build up its military capabilities, and all young men were conscripted for military duty. The first years of the war were a time of spectacular success of the German army, which occupied Denmark and Norway, and later France. By 1941, all of mainland Europe till the Russian frontier was under the Axis powers. The German army followed a tackle of a lightning strike, that is blitzkrieg, to storm into various countries and overrun them. The British Royal Navy continued to be the most powerful among the European naval forces and ensured that a seaborne invasion of Britain was not possible. However, Britain depended on large-scale imports of food, raw materials, and industrial goods by sea from its empire and the US. To attack this, Germany developed a fleet of submarines which caused havoc, especially in the Atlantic Ocean area, by sinking a large number of civilian ships carrying supplies to Britain. Dunkirk. In May 1940, more than 3 lakh British and French soldiers were forced back to the beaches in Dunkirk. Britain would have found it difficult to regroup if so many of our soldiers had been lost at Dunkirk. Battle of Britain. By July 1940, it was feared that the Germans were planning to invade Britain. Hitler wanted to force Britain to accept his proposals for peace by prolonged airborne bombing campaign. The German Air Force began to attack specific targets, especially the ports, airfields, and industrial installations. In September 1940, London was bombed mercilessly, an action known as the Blitz. By October 1940, night bombing raids on London and other industrial cities began. This campaign failed because, with the aid of a new developed and top secret device radar for detecting aircraft while still at a distance, the fighter planes of the Royal Air Force were able to inflict severe losses on the German bombers. The raids stopped after October 1940. The Germans dropped their plans to invade Britain because of the failure of the airborne baton. Lend-Lease 1941 to 1945. President Roosevelt realized that the United States had to change its policy of isolation, but could not intervene directly in the war in Europe because it was not politically feasible. So he started program of Lend-Lease in March 1941. Arms, food, military equipments and other supplies were sent to Britain, disguised as a loan which would be returned after use. This augmented the resources of Britain to great extent. Between 1941 and 1945, the total aid under Lend-Lease amounted to $46.5 billion. Battle of Stalingrad. In August 1942, the Germans attacked Stalingrad, stretching about 30 miles along the banks of Volga River. Stalingrad was a large industrial city producing armaments and tractors. Capturing the city would cut Soviet transport links with southern Russia, and Stalingrad would then enable the invading Germans to have access to the oil fields of Caucasus. In addition, seizing the city that bore the name of Soviet leader Stalin would serve as a great personal and propaganda victory for Hitler. German war planners hoped to achieve that end with Fall Blow, that means Operation Blue. On June 28, 1942, operations began with significant German victories. End of Hitler. The Allied forces under the command of General Eisenhower invaded Normandy in France. Slowly, the German army was forced back, but the Germans fought back and the war continued for nearly another year and finally ended in May 1945. Hitler committed suicide in April 1945. From 1944, the Russian army began to attack Germany from the east and captured much of Europe and Poland. In 1945, they occupied parts of Berlin, so that Germany was divided into two sections after the war.